The drip from the ceiling landed beside her blanket again. It was the third time that night. The air inside the shelter smelled like wet clothes and old coffee. Somewhere across the room, a woman coughed hard into the dark. Emily Parker opened her eyes and stared at the stained ceiling above her. She was 38 years old. She was homeless, and she was trying very hard not to forget who she used to be. The rain tapped against the shelter windows in West Baltimore. Cars hissed through puddles outside. The city never really slept. Neither did Emily anymore. She sat up slowly. The blanket slipped from her shoulders. Cold air hit her skin. Around her, rows of cots stretched across the room. Some people snored, some whispered, some stared into darkness like she did. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small notebook. The cover was bent. The pages were wrinkled. Every morning and every night she wrote in it, no matter what, no matter how hungry she was, no matter how tired, no matter how hopeless things felt. It was the one promise she still kept to herself. She clicked her broken pen. The ink barely worked. She wrote 3 words, keep moving forward. Then she closed the notebook. At that moment, she didn't know those words would become the center of her entire life. Outside, thunder rolled over Baltimore. Emily pulled the blanket tighter. Sleep never came back. Morning arrived gray and wet. The shelter served oatmeal and weak coffee.
Emily sat alone near the window. The oatmeal tasted like warm cardboard. She ate every bite. Across from her sat an older man named Frank. Frank had lived in shelters for nearly 6 years. He looked at her coffee. "You look tired." Emily laughed softly. "Tired costs extra now." Frank smiled. "Still writing?" "Every day." "What's in that notebook?" She shrugged. "Plans." Frank looked around the crowded room. "For what?" Emily stared through the glass. The rain was slowing. A bus rumbled past. People hurried to work. People with apartments. People with keys. People with places to go. She spoke quietly. "Someday I want people to depend on me again." Frank nodded. He didn't laugh. That mattered, because plenty of people had laughed before. A few years earlier, nobody would have imagined Emily sitting in a shelter. Not even Emily. Back then, she lived in a brick row house near Patterson Park. Nothing fancy, just enough. A small kitchen, a little front porch, a flower box under the window. She loved that house. She loved simple things. Sunday football, takeout pizza, watching storms from the porch. Her mother lived 15 minutes away. Her younger brother Ryan lived across town. Life wasn't perfect, but it felt steady. Emily worked as an operations supervisor for a regional shipping company. She was good at it. Very good. People trusted her. If trucks were late, she fixed it. If workers argued, she solved it. If schedules collapsed, she rebuilt them. She had a gift.
She could see problems before other people noticed them. Managers depended on her. Workers respected her. Customers asked for her by name. She never bragged about it. She just liked helping things run smoothly. Then one Tuesday changed everything. She would remember that Tuesday forever. The office smelled like printer toner and burnt coffee. Her manager called everyone into the conference room. Nobody talked. Everybody knew something was wrong. The company had been struggling. Orders were falling. Costs were rising. Emily sat near the front. The manager looked pale. His hands shook. Then he said the words, "We're closing 3 locations." Silence filled the room. Emily felt her stomach drop. People started crying. Someone cursed. Someone walked out. The manager kept reading names. When he said hers, everything went quiet inside her head. Just quiet. A strange kind of quiet. As if her brain refused to believe it. After 13 years. Gone. Just like that. The parking lot felt colder afterward. She sat in her car for nearly an hour. The steering wheel felt heavy beneath her hands. She called her mother. The phone rang twice. "Hey, honey." Emily couldn't speak at first. Then she whispered, "I lost my job." Her mother didn't say much. She didn't need to. Sometimes love sounds like silence. That was the last morning things felt normal. At first, Emily wasn't scared. She had savings. Not much, but enough. She updated her resume, applied everywhere, had interviews, waited.
Applied more. Waited longer. Months passed. Nothing. Every interview seemed promising. Every interview ended the same way. "We'll let you know." Nobody let her know. Bills kept coming. Rent didn't stop. Electricity didn't stop. Life didn't stop. Savings disappeared. Then her mother got sick. Very sick. Doctors found heart problems. Hospital visits became routine. Insurance covered some costs, not enough. Emily helped where she could. Every dollar mattered. Every week became harder. She started using credit cards, then payday loans, then more credit cards. Debt piled up fast, like snow before a storm. She still believed she'd find work soon. Then her mother's condition worsened. The hospital smell became familiar. The sound of machines became familiar. Fear became familiar. One night her mother grabbed her hand. "You look exhausted." Emily forced a smile. "I'm okay." "No, you're not." Emily looked away. Her mother squeezed harder. "Don't carry everything alone." Emily nodded, but she didn't listen. A month later, her mother died. The funeral happened on a cold November afternoon. Gray clouds hung over Baltimore. Leaves covered the ground. Emily stood beside the grave. Her legs barely held her up. After everyone left, she stayed behind. Wind pushed through the cemetery. She stared at the fresh dirt. The world felt empty. That grief broke something inside her, not all at once, slowly, like a crack spreading through glass. She stopped sleeping, stopped eating well,
Stopped answering calls. Job interviews became harder. Her confidence vanished. Employers noticed. One rejection followed another. Then the eviction notice arrived. White paper, black letters, final warning. She sat at her kitchen table staring at it. The refrigerator hummed nearby. Traffic moved outside. Everything looked normal. Nothing was normal. She paid what she could. It wasn't enough. The landlord wasn't cruel, just tired. "I need the rent, Emily." "I know." "I'm sorry." "I know." 3 weeks later, she carried boxes into a storage unit. Everything she owned fit inside. Furniture, photos, books, dishes, her old life. A metal door rolled shut. The sound echoed. She stood there for a long time. Then she climbed into her car and cried. The first night she slept inside that car felt unreal. The windshield fogged from her breath. Streetlights glowed overhead. Every sound felt dangerous. Every shadow felt close. She locked the doors twice, then checked them again. Sleep came in pieces. The next morning, her neck hurt, her back hurt, everything hurt. But she got up, brushed her teeth in a gas station bathroom, fixed her hair, applied for jobs, pretended everything was okay. Days became weeks, weeks became months. Eventually, the car died. The repair cost more than she had. She watched the tow truck take it away. That was another goodbye. After that came the shelter. The shelter had rules, curfews, schedules, waiting lists, paperwork, always paperwork.
Simple things became complicated. A missing document could delay help for weeks. A missed appointment could restart the process. Emily learned quickly. Stay organized, stay polite, stay patient. Not everyone did. People arrived angry, scared, broken. She understood why. One evening, a young woman named Sarah sat beside her. Sarah couldn't have been older than 22. She looked terrified. "I don't know what to do." Emily looked up from her notebook. "What happened?" Sarah wiped her eyes. "My boyfriend left." Emily nodded. Sarah kept talking. No job, no family nearby, no money, no place to go. Emily listened, really listened, for almost an hour. When Sarah finally stood up, she looked calmer. "Thank you." Emily shrugged. "You'll figure it out." Sarah smiled weakly. "How do you know?" Emily thought for a moment, then answered honestly, "Because you're still here." Sarah walked away. Emily returned to her notebook. But something stayed with her. People kept coming to her, not because she had answers, because she listened, because she remembered names, because she paid attention. Small things, very small things, yet people noticed. A shelter worker named Denise noticed too. Denise had worked there nearly 10 years. One afternoon, she approached Emily. "You ever managed people before?" Emily laughed. "A lifetime ago." Denise handed her a stack of forms. "Help me organize these." Emily looked surprised. "Why?"
Because you're good at it.
Emily spent an hour sorting paperwork, then another, then another. Soon Denise trusted her with more. Nothing official, just helping, keeping things organized, showing new residents where to go, answering questions. People listened when Emily spoke, not because she demanded it, because she cared. She didn't realize it yet, but something important was happening. The same instincts that once helped run shipping centers were still alive, buried, exhausted, but alive. Winter arrived. Baltimore cold settled into everything. The shelter stayed crowded. Christmas decorations appeared near the front desk. Some residents hated them. The decorations reminded them what they lost. Emily understood. Christmas Eve came. A local church donated dinner. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, pumpkin pie. Nothing fancy, still wonderful. The smell filled the building. People smiled more than usual. For a few hours, the shelter felt different. Warmer, kinder, human. Emily sat with Frank. Neither said much. Finally, Frank looked at her. "You ain't gonna stay here forever." Emily laughed softly. "You a fortune teller now?" "No." He pointed toward a group of residents. Several were asking Emily questions. Several waited for her help. Several trusted her. Frank nodded. "You just don't see yourself clearly yet." Emily looked away, because part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her couldn't. That night she called her brother. The call went badly. They hadn't spoken much.
Grief had pushed them apart. Money made things worse. Resentment filled the spaces between conversations. Ryan sounded tired. Emily sounded defensive. Old arguments surfaced. Neither listened. Eventually, Ryan sighed. "I don't know how to help you." The words hurt, not because they were cruel, because they were true. After the call ended, she sat outside the shelter. The air burned with cold. Her cracked phone showed 9% battery. Traffic moved through wet streets. Christmas lights blinked from apartment windows nearby. She wondered how life had become this. A question many people ask themselves at some point. Maybe not homelessness. Maybe something else. A divorce, a loss, a failure, a dream that fell apart. That moment where life no longer matches the picture in your head. Emily knew that feeling well. She sat there for nearly an hour. Then a volunteer stepped outside, a woman named Carol. She carried 2 cups of coffee. Steam rose into the cold air. Carol handed one over. No charge. Emily smiled. "Good. I couldn't afford it." Carol laughed, then sat beside her. For several minutes, neither spoke. Finally, Carol said something simple. "You still look like a leader." Emily stared into the coffee. "I don't feel like one." "Doesn't matter." Carol stood. "Most real leaders don't." Then she walked back inside. Emily never forgot those words. January arrived. Snow covered parts of the city. The shelter roof leaked again. The waiting lists grew longer.
Funding problems created stress. Staff looked overwhelmed. Residents grew frustrated. Arguments happened daily. One afternoon, a shouting match broke out near the front desk. People crowded around. Voices rose. Everyone talked. Nobody listened. Denise looked exhausted. Emily stepped forward, not because she wanted attention, because chaos bothered her, always had. "One at a time," she said. Nobody heard. She raised her voice slightly. "One at a time." The room quieted, just a little, then more, then completely. Emily pointed gently. "You first." One person spoke, then another, then another. 10 minutes later, the problem was solved. Nothing magical, just listening, just organizing, just helping people feel heard. Denise watched the entire thing. She didn't say anything then. She didn't need to. A week later, she handed Emily a folded flyer. Emily opened it. Community Leadership Training Program, free, held downtown, limited seats. Emily frowned. "Why are you giving me this?" Denise smiled. "Because somebody should." Emily looked down at the paper. The bus route was listed, the dates, the application deadline. Everything seemed impossible. People like her didn't attend programs like that. People like her were trying to survive until tomorrow. She folded the flyer, placed it inside her notebook, and forgot about it, or tried to. But every night she saw it there. Every morning, too. The flyer waited, quiet, patient, like a door she wasn't sure she deserved to open.
One snowy evening, she sat on her cot. The shelter lights dimmed. Residents settled into bed. The flyer rested between notebook pages. She pulled it out again, read every word, then read it again. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Inside, somebody laughed across the room. Emily stared at the application deadline. Only 3 days left. She had no idea that decision would change everything. She folded the flyer carefully, slipped it back into the notebook, and lay awake staring into the dark. Emily woke before sunrise. The shelter was still quiet. Most people slept. The room smelled like detergent and damp blankets. She sat up on her cot and opened her notebook. The flyer was still there, waiting. 3 days had become 2, then 1. Now it was the last morning. She stared at the application form. Her heart beat faster. Not because the program guaranteed anything. It didn't. Not because she expected success. She didn't. The fear came from something else. Hope. Hope had become dangerous. Every rejection hurt more when hope came first. She knew that feeling. Everybody who had spent enough time struggling knew it. You stop fearing failure. You start fearing disappointment. Because disappointment arrives wearing the face of possibility. Emily closed her eyes. Then she filled out the application. Name, address. She wrote the shelter address. Employment history. She explained the gap. Leadership experience. That section made her pause.
A year earlier, she would have listed achievements easily. Now her confidence had shrunk. She finally wrote the truth. Managed teams, solved problems, helped people work together. She didn't make herself sound bigger. She just told the truth. Then she handed the application to Denise before she could change her mind. Denise glanced at it. Good. Emily laughed. That's all? That's all. Denise smiled. You did the hard part. Emily wasn't so sure. The waiting started. A week passed, then another. Nothing. She told herself it didn't matter. Then she checked for updates every day. Frank noticed. You waiting on something? No. You're a terrible liar. Emily laughed. He wasn't wrong. 2 more weeks passed. Still nothing. She convinced herself she wasn't accepted. That was easier. One rainy afternoon, she returned from the library. The shelter lobby buzzed with activity. Phones rang. People talked. A television played quietly in the corner. Denise spotted her immediately. There you are. Emily stopped. What? Denise held up an envelope. A white envelope. Emily recognized the logo. Suddenly, her hands felt cold. Denise smiled. I'm pretty sure this belongs to you. Emily stared at it. For a second, she couldn't move. Then she took it. Her fingers trembled. She walked outside before opening it. Rain tapped against the sidewalk. Cars splashed through puddles. Her breath came faster. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. She opened it carefully.
Accepted. She had been accepted. Emily sat down on a nearby bench. The rain soaked her coat. She didn't care. For the first time in months, she smiled without forcing it. A man walking past glanced at her, probably wondering why anyone would sit smiling in the rain. She didn't care about that either. For once, she had somewhere to go. The program met 3 nights each week, downtown Baltimore, an old community center. The building wasn't fancy. The elevator barely worked. The chairs squeaked. The coffee tasted terrible. Emily loved every minute. The first night, she almost turned around. Everyone seemed confident. Everyone looked put together. Most had jobs, apartments, cars, lives that seemed intact. She felt out of place. Then the instructor entered, a woman named Karen, mid-50s, sharp eyes, warm voice. Karen looked around the room. Leadership isn't about titles. Nobody spoke. Karen smiled. It's about responsibility. Emily wrote that down. Then another sentence, then another. Soon, pages filled her notebook. The classes focused on communication, problem solving, team building, conflict management. All things Emily once knew. Things she thought she had lost. But they weren't gone, just buried beneath grief and survival. Each week felt like uncovering pieces of herself, one by one, slowly, painfully, beautifully. Still, life remained difficult. The shelter didn't disappear. Bills didn't disappear. Homelessness didn't disappear.
The bus rides took nearly an hour. Sometimes she skipped meals to save money. Sometimes exhaustion nearly won. One February night, snow covered the streets. The buses ran late. Wind cut through her coat. She stood at the stop wondering if she should go back. Her feet hurt, her stomach growled. Everything inside her wanted rest. Then she heard her mother's voice in memory. Don't carry everything alone. Funny thing about memories, they arrive when needed most. Emily got on the bus. That night, Karen divided everyone into groups. They received a challenge: create a plan to improve a struggling community center. Most groups jumped into ideas immediately. Emily watched, listened, waited. 10 minutes later, people argued. Nobody agreed, nobody moved forward. Finally, Emily spoke. Can we start with the biggest problem? The room quieted. Someone nodded. Another agreed. Within minutes, people organized around a plan. Tasks became clear. Arguments faded. The group finished first. After class, Karen stopped Emily near the door. You've done this before. Emily shrugged. A long time ago. Karen studied her. You still can. Those 3 words stayed with her all week. You still can. Sometimes people need permission to remember who they are. Spring approached slowly. Snow melted. Days grew longer. The city felt lighter. Emily graduated from the program in March. Nothing dramatic happened. No confetti, no miracle. Just a certificate, a handshake, a photograph.
Yet she carried that certificate carefully back to the shelter, like treasure, because to her, it was proof. Proof she wasn't finished. Proof she still existed beneath the damage. That night, Frank examined the certificate. Fancy. Emily laughed. Very fancy. He handed it back. Proud of you. Simple words, powerful words. Some people wait years to hear them. A week later, Karen called. Emily nearly missed the call. Her phone battery sat at 4%. The screen was cracked worse than ever. She answered quickly. Hello? Emily? Yes? This is Karen. Emily sat up straighter. Karen continued. I know a nonprofit looking for volunteers. Emily listened carefully. They help families facing eviction. The words caught her attention. Karen continued. They need somebody organized. Emily laughed softly. That sounds suspicious. Karen laughed too. Interested? Emily hesitated. Volunteering didn't pay. She needed income, desperately. Yet something inside her said yes. Maybe because she knew those families. Maybe because she had been one. I'll do it. The nonprofit occupied a small office near downtown. 3 employees, a handful of volunteers, stacks of paperwork everywhere, phones ringing constantly, families coming and going. The place looked overwhelmed. Emily felt strangely comfortable. On her first day, the director greeted her. His name was Tom. Friendly, busy, always moving. Tom handed her a clipboard. Welcome to organized chaos. Emily smiled.
I've met chaos before, Tom laughed. Good, you'll fit in. The work mattered. Helping families complete paperwork, finding housing resources, connecting people with services, listening, always listening. The stories hurt. Single mothers facing eviction, veterans sleeping in cars, grandparents raising grandchildren, workers holding 2 jobs and still falling behind. Emily saw pieces of herself everywhere. That made the work harder and better. One afternoon, a woman arrived crying. Her name was Melissa. 2 children waited beside her. Fear filled her eyes. Emily sat with her for nearly an hour. They reviewed documents, made calls, created a plan. When Melissa left, she looked calmer. Not safe yet, but calmer. At the door, she paused. Thank you. Emily smiled. We're not done yet. Melissa nodded. No, but now I think we'll make it. Emily watched her leave. The feeling stayed with her all day. She had missed this. Helping, solving, leading. Not because it made her important, because it made her useful. Months passed. Tom began trusting her with more responsibility. Then more. Then even more. Soon volunteers came to her with questions, schedules, problems, ideas. Emily handled them naturally, like she had never stopped. One afternoon, Tom stood beside her desk. Actually, it wasn't her desk, just a borrowed corner. Still, Tom leaned against the wall. You ever thought about working here? Emily laughed. Working here requires getting hired. I'm serious. Emily stopped smiling. Tom continued. A position may open soon. Her stomach tightened. Hope again.
dangerous hope. She forced herself not to expect anything. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. Then the position disappeared. Funding cuts, budget problems. The opportunity vanished, just like that. Emily sat alone after hearing the news. The office felt unusually quiet. Outside, traffic moved beneath gray skies. Tom approached carefully. "I'm sorry." Emily nodded. "It's okay." It wasn't okay, but she understood. The nonprofit world struggled constantly. Nobody wanted this. Tom sat beside her. "You helped a lot of people here." Emily stared ahead. "Didn't change anything." Tom looked surprised. "That's not true." She didn't answer, because disappointment was speaking, not reality. That night felt heavier than most. Back at the shelter, she climbed into bed early. The ceiling leak had returned. Water dripped steadily into a bucket. Plink, plink, plink. She listened to it for nearly an hour. Then Frank spoke from the neighboring cot. "You okay?" "No." Frank nodded. "Good." Emily laughed despite herself. "What kind of answer is that?" "The honest kind." Silence followed. Then Frank spoke again. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "You look more disappointed now than when you got here." Emily frowned. "Thanks." Frank smiled. "Hear me out." Emily waited. "You expected nothing back then." He pointed toward her notebook. "Now you've got something to lose."
Emily thought about that, long after Frank fell asleep. Maybe he was right. Maybe disappointment wasn't proof she failed. Maybe it was proof she cared again. That realization mattered a lot. Summer arrived. Baltimore grew hot and sticky. The shelter air conditioners struggled. Fans hummed constantly. The city smelled like pavement after rain. Emily kept volunteering, kept learning, kept showing up. Then opportunity number 2 appeared. A local business needed an office coordinator. The interview went well, really well. The manager liked her, complimented her experience, smiled often. Emily left feeling hopeful. A week later, she received an email. Rejected. Another candidate selected. She stared at the screen inside the library. The glow reflected in her tired eyes. Around her, people typed quietly. Nobody noticed her disappointment. That almost made it worse. She closed the email, opened another job listing, applied again. What else could she do? 3 weeks later, opportunity number 3 arrived. A housing agency needed temporary staff, 6-month contract, decent pay, potential future openings. Emily made it through 2 interviews, then a third. Everything seemed promising. Then nothing. Days passed, then weeks. No response, no calls, no emails. Just silence, the kind that slowly drains confidence. One afternoon, she sat outside the library. Heat shimmered above the sidewalk. Traffic lights changed overhead. People hurried past carrying groceries, going home, always home.
Emily stared at her shoes. For a moment, she felt tired beyond words. Not physical tired, soul tired. The kind that comes from trying repeatedly. The kind many people recognize. Maybe not from homelessness. Maybe from caring for a sick parent. Maybe from searching for work. Maybe from saving a relationship. Maybe from chasing a dream that keeps moving away. The point where quitting feels reasonable. Not dramatic. Reasonable. Emily sat there with that feeling. Then her phone rang. Tom. She answered. "Hey, you busy?" "No. Come by the office." Something in his voice sounded different. Emily stood immediately. The walk felt longer than usual. Questions filled her head. Good news? Bad news? Another problem? She had no idea. When she arrived, Tom waited near the conference room. Several staff members stood inside, smiling. Emily looked confused. Tom motioned her closer. Then he handed her a folder. She opened it. Her eyes moved across the page, then stopped. The words barely seemed real. Program Operations Manager, full-time, benefits, salary. She looked up. Tom smiled. The board approved funding. Emily stared at him, unable to speak. Tom continued. "We wanted you before." The room felt blurry. We just couldn't afford it. Nobody spoke. Emily looked back at the paper, then at the people around her. People who believed in her. People who had watched her work. People who saw value before she did. Her throat tightened. Finally she whispered, "You're serious?"
Tom laughed, very serious. Emily looked down again. The offer letter trembled in her hands. But one problem remained, a very big one. She still didn't have a home. Emily accepted the job the next morning. She barely slept that night, not because she wasn't tired, because her mind wouldn't stop moving. For years, every thought had been about survival: food, shelter, bus schedules, deadlines, waiting lists. Now another possibility stood in front of her, a future. That felt strange, even frightening. When people live in crisis long enough, stability can feel unfamiliar, like wearing shoes that don't fit yet. Tom understood. On her first official day, he met her near the entrance. The office smelled like coffee and printer paper. Phones rang. Staff moved between desks. Families waited in the lobby. Everything felt alive. Tom handed her a set of keys. Office keys. Simple metal keys. Emily stared at them. A year earlier, she had lost the keys to her house, the last keys that belonged to her. Now someone trusted her with new ones. She slipped them into their pocket carefully, like they were made of gold. The work came fast, much faster than she expected. Programs needed coordination. Volunteers needed training. Schedules needed rebuilding. Funding reports needed organization. The nonprofit had grown quickly, too quickly. Systems were struggling. Communication was messy. People worked hard, but often stepped on each other. Emily recognized the signs immediately.
The same instincts that once helped manage shipping centers came rushing back, only now they felt sharper. Years of hardship had changed her. She listened more, judged less, paid closer attention. When staff disagreed, she heard what wasn't being said. When families felt overwhelmed, she understood. When volunteers felt invisible, she noticed. Those long nights under leaking shelter ceilings had taught her something. People perform best when they feel seen. Within 3 months, the office ran differently. Meetings became shorter, problems got solved faster, volunteers stayed longer, families received help sooner. People started noticing. One afternoon, a board member visited. His name was David, retired banker, serious face, careful words. After touring the office, he stopped near Emily's desk. "I've heard good things." Emily smiled politely. "That's nice." David looked around. "No, it's impressive." Emily didn't know what to say. Compliments still felt awkward, especially after everything she had lived through. David continued, "You've built something important here." Emily looked toward the lobby. A family was meeting with a caseworker. Children laughed softly near the waiting area. The sound made her smile. "We all built it." David nodded. Yet he looked unconvinced, because he had seen the difference. Others had too. The job solved many problems, but not all of them. She still lived in the shelter. That reality followed her every evening. Each morning she arrived looking professional. Each night she returned to a cot. The contrast felt surreal. Few people knew. Emily rarely mentioned it, not because she felt ashamed, because she wanted her work judged fairly. Still, finding housing remained difficult. Rent prices had climbed. Waiting lists stretched forever. Applications required deposits. Deposits required money. Money required time. Progress came slowly, yet it came. Each paycheck helped. Each month strengthened her position. For the first time in years, she saved money. Not much, but enough to matter. One afternoon, she visited her storage unit. The metal door rolled upward. Dust floated through sunlight. Her old life sat quietly inside. Boxes, books, photos, kitchen supplies, memories. Emily stepped inside slowly. She picked up a framed photograph. Her mother smiled back. The picture had been taken years earlier. Summer afternoon, backyard barbecue, everybody laughing. Emily brushed dust from the frame, then sat on a box. The storage unit felt strangely sacred, like a time capsule, like proof that she had survived. Tears filled her eyes, not because she was sad, not entirely, because she wished her mother could see this, see how hard she fought, see how close she had come, see who she was becoming. She sat there for nearly an hour, then carefully placed the photo back and closed the door. 3 months later, she found an apartment, a small one-bedroom, nothing fancy, a little worn, an older building, but clean, safe, affordable.
The leasing office smelled like fresh paint. The manager handed her the paperwork. Emily signed slowly, almost carefully, as if moving too quickly might break the moment. When everything was complete, the manager smiled. "Congratulations." Emily nodded, then laughed, then cried, then laughed again. The manager pretended not to notice, a kindness Emily appreciated. Move-in day arrived on a bright October morning. The air carried that crisp Baltimore fall feeling. Leaves drifted across sidewalks. Football flags hung from porches. Emily loaded her belongings from storage. A few volunteers helped. Tom helped. Even Frank showed up. Emily hadn't expected that. Frank carried boxes slowly. His knees bothered him. Still, he insisted. At one point, he looked around the apartment. "Not bad." Emily laughed. "High praise." Frank nodded seriously. "Best apartment I've seen all week." The room filled with laughter. By afternoon, everything was inside. The furniture wasn't fancy. Most came from donations. A used couch, a small table, bookshelves with scratches. None of that mattered. Emily stood alone in the living room after everyone left. Sunlight stretched across the floor. Silence filled the apartment. Real silence. No shelter noise, no coughing, no announcements, no footsteps. Just quiet. She walked from room to room, touching walls, opening cabinets, checking windows, smiling like a kid. That night she ate takeout pizza sitting on the floor.
Because she didn't own enough chairs yet. It tasted wonderful. Later, she fell asleep in her own bed. A real bed. The sheets smelled like laundry soap. The pillow felt soft. She expected tears. Instead, she slept. Deeply, peacefully, for 10 straight hours. The next morning, sunlight woke her. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered and smiled. That was the last night she ever slept in a shelter. Success didn't arrive all at once after that. Life rarely works that way. There were still challenges. Funding shortages, stress, unexpected bills, long work days. Some relationships never recovered. A few former friends stayed gone. Some people only understand you when life looks easy. Emily learned that too. But other relationships healed. Slowly. Especially with Ryan. The first real step happened at Thanksgiving. Ryan invited her to dinner. The invitation sat on her phone for hours before she answered. Fear lingered. Old hurt lingered. Still, she went. The house smelled like turkey and stuffing. Football played on television. Kids ran through the hallway laughing. Normal family chaos. Emily hadn't realized how much she missed it. Ryan greeted her at the door. Awkward at first. Neither knew what to say. Finally, Ryan pulled her into a hug. A real hug. The kind that says more than words. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Emily nodded. "So am I." Neither explained further. Neither needed to. Healing often begins there. At the dinner table, Ryan looked around.
"You seem different." Emily smiled. "I am different." "What changed?" Emily thought about that. Really thought about it. Then answered honestly. "I stopped waiting for somebody to save me." Ryan nodded slowly. That answer stayed with him. Years later, he would still remember it. The nonprofit kept growing. Programs expanded. New partnerships formed. More families received help. More volunteers joined. Eventually, Emily became executive director. The promotion shocked her, not because she lacked ability, because she still carried memories of the shelter. Memories of cold mornings, leaking ceilings, long bus rides, empty bank accounts. Part of her still felt like that woman, the woman holding a backpack and a notebook, trying to survive. The board voted unanimously. David called her afterward. "You earned this." Emily looked out her office window. Downtown Baltimore stretched beneath gray clouds. She smiled softly. "Thank you." But inside she thought of something else. Not the promotion, not the title, the people. Denise, Karen, Tom, Frank, Carol, all the people who believed before success arrived. Their faith mattered, more than they knew. Leadership changed under Emily's direction. She refused to lead from distance. She remembered what invisibility felt like. Every new employee received time with her. Every volunteer learned their work mattered. Every family received dignity. not charity, dignity, because dignity changes people. She had lived that truth.
5 years passed, then 7, then 10. The organization became one of the most respected nonprofits in Baltimore. Other cities called for advice. Other leaders sought guidance. Emily spoke at conferences, appeared in local news stories, received awards. People praised her leadership. They talked about strategy, vision, management skills, planning. Those things mattered, but they weren't the whole story. The truth sat deeper. The shelter taught her leadership. Not the training programs, not the promotions, not the awards. The shelter. Listening taught her leadership. Pain taught her patience. Lost taught her empathy. Homelessness taught her how easily life can change and how much grace people need when it does. One winter evening, nearly 12 years after her first night in the shelter, Emily returned there for an event. The building looked mostly the same. The smell was familiar. The sounds were familiar. The memories rushed back immediately. Staff members greeted her warmly. Residents gathered for dinner. Conversations filled the room. Emily walked slowly among the cots. Then she stopped. There it was. The same section, the same corner, the same ceiling. A bucket still sat beneath a small leak. Emily laughed quietly. Some things never changed. Denise appeared beside her, older now, more gray hair, same warm smile. "You found your spot." Emily nodded. "I sure did." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Denise looked at her. "You know what I remember?" "What?" "The flyer."
Emily laughed. "The flyer? You almost didn't apply." "I know." Denise shook her head. "Good thing you did." Emily stared at the ceiling. Water dripped softly into the bucket. Plink, plink, plink. The sound carried her back through time, back to uncertainty, back to fear, back to hope, back to the woman writing in a notebook beneath a leaking roof. That woman felt far away, yet not really, because she was still here, still part of her. After the event ended, Emily lingered behind. The shelter emptied gradually. Night settled over Baltimore. Cold air pressed against the windows. She walked into a restroom near the hallway, then stopped in front of the mirror. For a moment, she simply looked. Not at the clothes, not at the success, not at the title, at herself. The reflection looking back seemed familiar, strong, tired in healthy ways, peaceful, present, real. And suddenly she remembered another reflection, years earlier, a dark store window, a homeless woman who barely recognized herself. The difference wasn't money, not really. It wasn't even housing, though that mattered deeply. The difference was identity. She knew who she was again. That realization hit her harder than any award ever could. Emily smiled at her reflection, a quiet smile, the kind nobody else sees. Then she whispered 3 words, the same 3 words from her notebook. Keep moving forward. She didn't need the notebook anymore. The words lived inside her now. Outside, the city lights glowed against the winter sky. Cars moved through familiar streets. People hurried home. Others struggled. Some sat in shelters, wondering if things would ever change. Emily knew that feeling. She would never forget it. And she never wanted to. Because remembering kept her human. It kept her grateful. It kept her close to the people she served. Years later, people often asked how she became such a strong leader. They expected complicated answers. They expected secrets, strategies, business lessons. Instead, she usually smiled and told the truth. Leadership began when she learned to listen. It grew when she learned to care. And it became real when she chose to keep going after every reason to quit. The hardest seasons of life often hide the lessons that shape us most. A lost job can reveal strength we never knew existed. Grief can teach compassion. Failure can build wisdom. The moments that seem to break us sometimes uncover the parts of us that were waiting to lead, serve, and grow. Every person carries more strength than they realize. Every person has value long before success arrives. And every person deserves dignity, especially when life falls apart. The real measure of a life isn't how high someone climbs. It's whether they keep their heart open while climbing. When your hardest season arrives, will you remember that the person you are becoming may be stronger than the person you used to be?
The people who keep moving forward often discover they were never as broken as they feared. The story is now complete.